Hello, my friends. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. My name is Jason, and this is the Outstanding Life Show. I wanted to say thank you for stopping by. It's actually pretty awesome. Today, we're actually going to chat about something that I find is really important. It's actually touching on comfort zones. In the past couple of weeks, we've talked about vulnerability. I think the week before that, we talked about gratitude, so being thankful. And in previous episodes, we dove into stressors, so things that are stressful. And then we looked at triggers, and we even looked at hitting rock bottom the week before that. So I can't believe we've talked about quite a few things, ranging from when things are feeling really good, and we've talked about things that are challenging situations, and then we've even talked about what happens when all things fall apart, and what happens when we go and we actually hit that rock bottom. What are some things we can do to pick ourselves back up? So today I wanted to talk about something that was in relation to all those things, where in recovery we have comfort zones, and there can be a little bit of a difference from saying someone who's I want to say who's not in recovery, so someone who's just a normal, average individual who also has their same comfort zones. And we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between those and what those will look like. But if you're new here, hold on, I've got some new call to actions. I want to say, welcome to the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason, and here we are talking about recovery. We're talking about addiction, and some pretty awesome steps that we can do to help start those conversations, just to be able to get things up and running. Now, the main thing I want to share is this show isn't about convincing anybody to do anything. I need to stress that point. This is a great way to have a conversation. This is a way to, for someone that's already made the decision that this is something they want, a life without addiction, a life without alcohol, this show is for you. Again, this isn't here to help convince you to do anything or to stop you from doing anything. This is just a great way to have a conversation and to get the mindset out there. And so this is the Outstanding Life Show. And if you like what we're talking about, if you want to know more about this, feel free to type show in the comments, and we will send a show reminder out to you. And I'm just going to set something up here. Hold on. I've got a video, and I want to go into the video real quick. But before I do, I need to take something off. I had this. It was driving me up the wall. It was an autofocus. Autofocus was flipping in and out. But let's go ahead and get the video up and running now that I've removed the autofocus. And we'll talk about comfort zones. Here, I'm just going to go and remove the lower third. And I want to showcase. Here we go. We're going to talk about something fun. Okay, so this is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason. Today we're talking about comfort zones. So with comfort zones, we naturally want to seek them out. We want to be in a comforting place, and it's natural for us to want to be in that zone. I don't want to say all the time. I just want to say at a spot where it becomes normal. And that's why in comfort zones, it's hard to let go. You know, as humans, we create comfort. There's nothing wrong. So there's nothing wrong with being in your comfort zone unless you get too comfortable and you start holding back, and instead of growing, you're not learning, you're not trying new things. So it's okay to be comfortable, but it's not okay to be too comfortable, if you know what I mean. And if I challenge myself, and if I'm taking risks, slowly that will help me grow. slowly by inching my way outside of my comfort zone, it no longer becomes that comfort zone. It's no longer being that safe place. And then here's a comment that everybody knows: without any risk, there is no reward. If you, what is it? You miss all the shots you never take. And that's a Wayne Gretzky reference there for hockey fans. So without any risk, there is no reward. And by embracing new challenges, it makes me more creative. And then it also gives me the confidence to keep going. So by challenging myself in a healthy way, that helps me see beyond that, and it pushes me to figure out, what are some ways I can do this? What are some ways I can, if I were to do this, how would I do it? And then by accomplishing it, I have this sense of satisfaction where I'm able to have the confidence to keep going. And so there's three beliefs to living an outstanding life. And so number one, so comfort zones, they make me feel safe, yes, but they also they can limit my potential. And so I have to believe in the possibility, and it's important to stress that I have to believe in the possibility that a better life is out there for me to achieve. If I never believe that there's this other life out there, I'm never going to want to go after it. So after I believe in the possibility, number two, I have to believe that I'm actually going to go out there and get it, and that this outstanding life is worth it. And then the third thing I have to believe is that I'm worth it, that I deserve this outstanding life. And if I don't find any value, if I don't find value in the journey, or if I don't find any value in the opportunity, I'm giving up before I even begin. And then at that stage, I'm starting to settle for less than I deserve. And that's not what we're here to do. No one wants to settle. So if I never believe in the possibility, I never take any chances. And then I begin to settle. So here we are settling into a life which doesn't make me happy. I'm never truly going to be fulfilled if I never take those chances. So then the only way I'm ever going to be able to become more than I am is by experiencing what's outside of me. So if I'm never pushing myself to being outside that comfort zone, I'm never going to be willing to entertain to let things in. So here we go. So as an addict, it's easy for me to want to keep numbing and to keep stuffing and to keep buffering. And in the previous episode, we did chat a little bit about what that is. So if I'm numbing, I'm just avoiding the situation by consuming my alcohol, or by taking substances, or by avoiding the conversation, by stuffing my feelings, by going out to the gym excessively, or by buffering. My friend Vanessa calls it buffering, where you're doing anything other than what you're supposed to be doing. And so as an addict, it's easy to want to keep doing those things. Because the main thing here is that by suffering, and that's what those are, by buffering, it's suffering. Suffering is not a blanket of comfort. Comfort shouldn't be holding me captive. And it's crazy, because then as an addict, as someone who's on the struggle, someone who is in recovery, if I go through those motions of numbing, buffering, and suffering, while it might be conditional, that might be something I'm used to doing, something habitual, those actions are not supportive of this amazing life that I want. Because then that blanket of comfort, by not doing anything, by following through with that, by keeping that going, I'm actually just holding myself captive with my own comfort zone, by not pursuing a life that's outside of it, by only living in that moment. So here we go. So it's okay to keep growing, and it's okay to keep moving, as long as I'm moving in the direction of progress. It is not about perfection. It's about progress. That one's important. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep going. That for me was huge. That for me was a change where I really wasn't sure about, was it something I was doing, and then I was worried about starting this show and like getting the show up and running, and I wasn't sure about getting everything all organized, and I was worried about, I wanted everything to be perfect. And then I took this course, and one of the messages was, you don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep going. And then that sentence resonated with me, and I was like, that's huge. All I have to be doing is walking in the direction of progress, and that's progress. You know, albeit it's slow progress, but, you know, here I am a year later, and I've got this show up and running. So I don't want to focus on the end game. Instead, I want to focus on doing the next right thing. You know, if I really want this outstanding life, I'm going to have to replace my limiting beliefs with liberating truths. And I have to be stronger than my fears. That's important. I have to believe that I'm worth it. Happiness is an inside job. Everyone says it, it's kind of cliche, but it is important to stress. So with happiness being an inside job, comfort zones can be dangerous. It's okay to be in a comfort zone, but it's not okay to let that comfort zone start making decisions for you. So repeat behaviors, patterns, routines, they all minimize stress and they minimize risk. And those are all the benefits around a comfort zone, which can be pretty awesome. Again, we talked about. But healthy patterns, they should be formed instead. You know, patterns that encourage growth, patterns that challenge us to be more. And by doing so, we actually end up having a sense of radical transparency. And by radical transparency, what I mean is radical open-mindedness. Now that's kind of a big one. Because if all I ever believe in, if all I ever see and do is like the 3 inches in front of my face, I end up living a very shallow depth of field life. And if that's my comfort zone, I'm never going to want to be outside of it. And if I'm not open to an idea that's something that's outside of that, I'm never going to want to see past that. You know, I can never see past a problem that's right in front of me. You know, I can't see past an issue that seems to be, you know, a whole mountain right in front of me. I can't see past the other side of it if that's all I'm focusing on. I have to believe in that there's something else that's out there. I have to believe that there's success out there, and that I'm worth it. And so here is where that radical transparency, that radical open-mindedness comes in. Okay, thanks for watching this short little video. I appreciate each and every one of you. This is a quick video on having a... Hold on, I'm just going to switch over to the other camera. So this is a quick video about, you know, comfort zones. And so if you're new here, this is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason, and we talk about everything related to recovery. We talk about overcoming adversity. We talk about addiction. And these are things that they're never really light topics, but I'm finding that by getting more conversation out there, it becomes a lot more healthier of a conversation. Some things are scary and they're worried, but again, with enough information, we can equip ourselves so that when we do have certain conversations, they're actually healthier and happier, and they don't need to be ominous or scary. But if you like what we're talking about, if you like being a part of the conversation, feel free to type show in the comments, and we will have a reminder sent out to you. If you're watching the live show, type hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, still say hello. That's pretty awesome. I love everybody that checks this out every week. And so let's go into talking about... Hold on, I want to bring up the pre-show. And so here we are, question of the day. So what are some things that push you outside of your comfort zone? And outside your comfort zone, what do I mean by that? So by comfort zone, what are some things that are safe, warm blankets. And so an example for me is when I wake up in the morning, I really enjoy the warm blanket that's actually around me. And I really enjoy sleeping. But one of the things I also enjoy is working out and going to the gym. So when I wake up in the morning, I like that I'm warm, and that's my comfort zone. But I know that I want to go out to the gym. I know I want to go and have this fit and long-lasting life. I want to have, I want to be around when I'm double my age, triple my age. But if I'm not pushing myself, if I'm not challenging myself, I'm not going to be in a position where that's something I can do. And so that's where going to the gym follows suit with that. That's where going to the gym is a part of that. And so if I'm making the decision to work out and I'm in my bed, I'm probably not going to get out of my bed. But if I make the decision of whether or not I'm going to go work out, as I'm out of my bed, as I'm out of my comfort zone, pretty soon I'm going to find myself on my way to the gym. I'm going to be on my bike. I'm going to be going for a run or whatever that is. So for me, what pushes me out of my comfort zone is having something, a desire, a bigger dream, a bigger challenge than I normally would. So that's going to come from pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. Okay, so let's go check this out. Let's move to the next one. So what are the benefits of having a comfort zone normally? Okay, so normally. So as a normal person, having a comfort zone would mean that I have a sense of certainty. I have a sense of predictability. I have some low stressors in my life. And actually here, I've got this image I want to show you. Let's bring this up. Okay, sorry, hold on. All right, so here we have our comfort zone. So it's almost looking like one of a darts background where you've got the bullseye in the middle, and here we have, where is it? It's over here. It's over here. So we've got the comfort zone in the middle, and then just outside of that we have learning, the learning and growth zone, and that's the optimal performance. And then outside of that we've got panic. And we're going to talk about all three, both on the normal side of things, but also from a recovery standpoint. Okay, so in the comfort zone, as a normal person, we actually end up having the benefits of certainty. We know what's going to happen. We have the sense of predictability, and there's low risk involved. I never have to worry about getting harmed if I'm always in the comfort zone. I never have to worry about being taken advantage of, or something malicious taking place. I don't know, I'm making it up. If I'm always ever going to be in the comfort zone, I never have to worry about anything taking that away or harming it or destructing it. So as a normal person, comfort zones, they can be pretty okay by having that low stress, low complexity, low high on the certainty but low on the stress side of things. Let's go take a look at this one here, where I want to bring this one up instead. Okay, so here we have an example of where if we are living in our comfort zone, where the magic happens is just outside of that. Right over here. Oh my God. Okay, over here. So if we live in our comfort zone, not much is ever going to happen. So here we go. As an addict, as someone in recovery, a comfort zone actually has a lot more risk. It has a lot more challenges. There's suppressed feelings. Hold on, I'm just going to take this off. There's suppressed feelings. There's avoidance, and by avoidance I mean that we kind of talked about that as stuffing. By avoiding, we In a previous episode, we talked about when we're driving a car and you're holding on to the steering wheel and it's a snowy storm outside and you're holding on and your knuckles are so tight around the steering wheel that they actually turn white. And that's what we call as white knuckling. And if you're white knuckling it through, you're barely getting by. You're barely going, and all you're doing is just living in regret. Well, I lived in regret. I want to be honest there. So as an addict, as someone who was in, before I joined the positive light of recovery here, I was just having these suppressed feelings. I was avoiding responsibility. I was barely getting by. I was living in my regret. And here, I want to show you something where we've got, this one I thought was pretty cool. I want to show you. So this one is it's a great things never came from comfort zones. And that one kind of stuck with me because it's its own, it's almost like it's a ship on water. And I was like, man, one of the cool things we have in recovery is we've got the saying of, I'm a captain of my own ship. I'm a sailor of my own seas. It's relaying to, like, I'm in charge of the decisions I'm making. I'm the one that's steering this. I'm the one that has control. And it's a reminder that, despite how crazy things might get, there still is a solid foundation. Okay, it's on water. Maybe it's not solid, but it's a boat that I'm steering. There we go. So I'm steering this boat and I have control of where it goes. And in recovery, it's a little bit harder to manage because this comfort zone, this enabling idea, these stinking thoughts, stinking thinking, if it's making decisions for us, if all we're ever doing is living in this rounded bubble of what we've conditioned ourselves as normal, pretty soon it's a habit of suppressing my feelings. Pretty soon it's a normal thing that I'm just continually avoiding responsibility. I'm avoiding conversations I need to have. I keep barely getting by. I'm always living in regret. And some people can do it successfully. I mean, for years, I was a high-functioning person living in recovery. I wasn't living in recovery. I was just a high-functioning addict. I was a high-functioning alcoholic, where you could look at me and everything would be fine. From the outside, you could see me as normal, but it wasn't until things started piling up to the point where I wasn't able to perform until I reached that threshold. And we talked about those triggers in a previous episode, where what are the things that trigger you? And it wasn't until I was triggered that pretty soon everybody around me would be able to see who I was. They would be able to see the inside of me, which was this big ball of stress, this big ball of this shallow individual who was this empty, hollow person who was living around with these walls of fears. And it's crazy how these comfort zones can make decisions for us. These comfort zones, they seem ominous and safe at the time, but if left unchecked, in a previous episode we talked about playing the tape to the end, where my friend Al, he would tell me, Jason, play the tape to the end. And in doing so, this decision we're making of being safe today can actually cause the opposite reaction later. It's insane. Okay, so I've been talking for a while, so I want to share real quick. My name is Jason. Thanks for watching. This is the Outstanding Life Show. We talk about things related to recovery, alcohol, addiction. We're here to start conversations and to get things going for people that have already made the decision that this is something they want. I'm not really here to convince people that this is what you should do or this is what you should stop doing. I'm sharing my journey and what I've had to do to help get this far. And it's pretty amazing. I get a lot of feedback from a lot of people. They message me and they say hello. They message and they share what the previous week's episode meant. It's actually pretty awesome. But if you like what we're doing here, if you like what we're talking about, and you want to know more, please feel free to type show in the comments and we will get a message sent out to you the next time we go live. That reminds me, I'm going to check on the comments here real quick. So I'm just going to remove the lower third and go check it out. We have Amy here. Hello, Amy. Thank you for stopping by. That's actually really awesome. And Amy's sharing, it's difficult to point to graphics while live. I know. because I was like, is it this camera facing this way, or is it the other camera facing the other way? It's hilarious. So if I bring this one back up, if I bring up the ship one, so I'm like, my natural reaction is to like go that way, but then I see it and I'm like, oh wait, it's up, it's down. If I cover my face, it's hilarious. Okay, so thank you, Amy, for stopping by. I really appreciate that. Okay, where did we leave off? We left off with the growth zone. Okay, let's bring up the other graphic so we can see it. So we've just talked about the comfort zone. And the comfort zone, that was the place for normal people where it's predictability. It's a sense of safety. It's a sense of low stress, low complexity, but it's high on the certainty level. And then for an addict, that can be a dangerous zone because that's where our enabling behaviors can come from, where we condition ourselves to be in this state and we'll do what's easy. We'll do what we did the last 10 minutes. We'll do what we did for the last 10 hours or the last 10 days. It's easy for us to not want to change is what I'm saying. So we'll jump into the growth zone. And the growth zone, we'll talk about it normally. So from a normal perspective, it sounds weird to say normal. When I go to meetings, they'll talk about normal people and they'll reference them as normies. So I'll say, I went out to a barbecue and I was there with a bunch of normies, a bunch of normal people. And it's fun because you hear how someone in recovery will describe someone as normal. They'll say, like, can you believe it? This person took 3 sips of their beer and then they had the audacity to leave the beer can with only 3 sips being taken. And then to a normal person, it doesn't matter. To a normal person, who cares? It's a beer. But for someone in recovery, it's crazy. I still do it to this day. I don't understand how or why, but I know I'm not normal because I can pinpoint who's drinking what and how much they've drunk. And I'm just conscientiously aware, even subconsciously aware. And it's incredible because then I'll go to meetings and I'll hear other people who were also in the same program as me describe the same action. Well, they'll say, this person walked around and they drank half their beer and they left it down and they went and they opened up a brand new can of beer. It sounds funny, but then they're like, and when they ask them why, when they ask the normal person, why did you do that? And they said, well, because the beer is warm. But someone in recovery doesn't think that way. Someone in recovery doesn't think about, oh, the beer is warm, I'm just not going to drink it. Oh, these things are bad, I shouldn't be doing it. We don't think like that. We just consume, and we don't think about the cost or the impact or the long-term effects. And again, that's where we're relating back down to the comfort zone side of things, where if all we're ever doing is numbing, and if that's all we've conditioned ourselves to being, we're never going to see outside of it. We're never going to believe that there's a life outside of it. Okay, so circling back to normal people, to normies, who are living in the comfort zone, for them, sorry, I need to drink my lemon water. Lemon water is amazing. It gets your day started, just right off the bat. Okay, so living in the optimal growth zone for normal people, this is where optimal performance comes from. This is where healthy conversations are born, coaching conversations. This is where aspiration, because if you look at the top part, if you look at the top part, we have optimal performance, and then we've got learning. And so what that means is we're at the spot where we're open to the idea where growth is possible, and we're committed then to that sense of achievement. And that's where aspiration is born, where we believe that it's possible and we're willing to do the action. And then the in-between part is where the magic happens. The in-between part is where the magic happens, right? So if all we ever do is live in that comfort zone and we're never willing to go outside of it, we're never going to be a part of that magic. We're never going to be a part of that aspiration. It's insane. And I never really understood it until I started this path of recovery. Okay, so now let's go and take a look at living in the growth zone, right? So we talked about normal, and then we're talking about the hold on, we're talking about normal, and then we're going to talk about the recovery side of things. Okay, so the growth zone, as an addict, in a different sense, I want to say it took me a long time. This is my honesty moment here. It took me a long time to believe that there was something greater than ourselves, something greater than our suffering, something greater than my predicament that I'm in. There are always things that will drive us. There are always things that are those, my friend Vanessa would call it stories. There's the stories that will tell us. There's the facts that took place, and then there's the stories that we tell ourselves. And it's those stories that I find that I'm always elaborating on, or I'm always building off of, or, if there's some horrible experience that's taken place to me, there's an even more horrible experience when I remember it. Like I'm adding on to it. And it's not making me more of a whole person. It's actually bringing me down. It's kind of depressing. Yes, those events took place, and yes, those horrible things took place. But here is where believing in something bigger than that, believing in something more, is a lot more challenging for someone who's on the recovery path. Someone who believes that their only outcome is the next 3 minutes, is the only outcome is, hold on, I've got another graphic here. This one's a little bit more busier, but I want to show you. Okay, this one's a lot more busier. So this one is digging into, we've got from a life event crisis point. So if you look at the bottom left, that's the event that takes place. And then as you move up, the axis of up is the well-being scale. So we have at the very bottom left, we've got despair and distress. We've got feelings of okay. We've got feelings of feeling good. And then right at the top, we've just got in here well-being. And then if you notice at the despair level on the far left, sorry guys, if you look on the far left, there's numbness and there's disbelief. And then we've got minimizing or denial. And for the longest time, for me, as someone who was in recovery, I was in denial for so long. I couldn't believe it. How in denial I was. That this wasn't an issue. That this wasn't something that wasn't as big or as worthwhile. Hold on, I'm just going to shrink this down so you can see me. There we go. That's better. Okay, so I was in denial for so long, and it's crazy how if all I ever do is believe that there's nothing more than outside of this, I'm never going to want to have the strength or courage to want to push myself outside that zone. I'm going to live in this world of uncertainty. I'm going to live in this feeling of confusion. And, in recovery, it was crazy. They call it the honeymoon stage, where you're feeling like you're a go-getter. You're like, oh yeah, sure, recovery, I can do this. This is great. And it's all fine and dandy in the beginning, but it's in that traction moment where you got to be committed. You got to follow through on that, where you got to have those hard conversations. Anyone can embrace the recovery. It's the thought for me of what was life going to be like after recovery. So I had this fear of this idea of who I was as a person, and who I was as a person identified through these addictions, through these substances. And it was crazy, because then what you want is you want a life that's outside of it. But then I was afraid of, who would I be without it? Who would I be without this, these substances, these events, these Friday weekends that last till Tuesday. Like, if all I ever identify myself with as these things, who am I going to be without them? And then I was more afraid of I don't want to say I was afraid of becoming sober. I want to say that, so I heard this analogy from Jordan Peterson. He's on YouTube. He's amazing. And he talked about this lecture where he was saying, if you're approaching a cliff it's not the cliff that scares you. It's the idea of falling that scares you. And it's weird because the fear of falling, that action, arrives in you before I arrive at the cliff. And so this fear is making a decision for me before I even get there. So for me, relating it back to me, because it's all about me, is this sense of this choosing this life of sobriety, of recovery, of mindfulness, sorry. It was more scary coming up to the decision than it was actually making the decision. I knew that I wanted that life, but I was afraid of following through with it. I was afraid of who would my identity be without these things. And I didn't believe that I was going to have any level of substance as a person. And what ended up happening was the complete opposite. Because for so long, I didn't talk about this with anybody. For so long, I didn't share any of my thoughts or my feelings. I just stuffed all my emotion. And then pretty soon, people would notice, they're like, something's up. And then someone would ask me. And then I would have that face value where I would put up this wall, this facade, this mask, and people would know that more than they would know me. Until eventually I would hit this, if you look at the graph, I would hit this crisis point. And then because of those conditions of not believing in confidence, not having a sense of certainty, this sense of resilience, as my friend Barbara would say, I'm more prone to make decisions that are within that comfort zone. I'm more prone to continually live and not go outside to that growth zone. And in doing so, the chances of me making another bad decision are really, really high. And that's the what I referred to earlier, the dangerous part of comfort zones. In a normal person world, it doesn't have to impact them. A comfort zone, sure, you're never going to get too bad, you're not going to go to the gym today. But as a person in recovery, living in my comfort zone can have a very dangerous impact. Because what happens then is we believe as addicts that we can pick up right where we left off. We can, if we drink 17 beers in a night, we can do that again the next night. But if we've had 5 years off in between, having 5 years off, your body isn't what it was before. My body isn't the same anymore. I'm not 19 anymore. I'm getting older. When I get out of bed to go to the gym, I take a minute. It's crazy. Okay, so we've talked about the comfort zone. We've talked about the growth zone. And hold on, I want to check with the comments real quick. But before I do that, this is the Outstanding Life Show. My name is Jason. Here we are talking about recovery, alcohol, addiction, all the different things in between. If you like what we're doing here, and you want to know more, type show in the comments. We'll involve you in the conversation. Thank you for stopping by. I want to check out the comments, though. Hold on. And yes, we have Amy. Amy's saying, this is awesome. She doesn't drink, but she definitely finds herself monitoring how much other people's drink around me. I know, isn't it crazy? I don't know. It's fun though. It's almost like it's like people, like I remember I used to go to the Calgary Stampede and I would love people watching. Now it's just a crazy abundance of people there, but it's fun people watching, and like watching people as they consume their drinks around me is almost like a people watching 2.0. Amy says this is the first time that she's heard the terminology normies. I know. For me, it was hilarious when someone explained it. I was like, I never had a vernacular for it. I never had a word to describe it. And then that's what was used in the meeting. And it was like, you know what? I like that. Normies. Okay. Amy's sharing that it's really good, albeit a busy graphic. The level of detail is so true. It is. It is. I know, I was busy. I was debating sharing it or not. The fear of falling. Yes, that cliff thing. I never realized how much that makes a decision. The analogy reminds me of jealousy. In my younger years, I felt in my gut physically before my emotions could feel it. That is super interesting. That's I've heard it explained once where the part of the the part of the brain that processes language is not the same part of the brain that prescribes feeling. Prescribes is not the right answer. I'm probably using it the wrong way. Where the feeling part, it just doesn't feel right. Something's wrong. I just don't feel right. Like it doesn't, well, we haven't placed it into words yet. We can sense that there's something. There's a spider senses tingling. And so I appreciate what you shared, Amy. That's awesome. Okay. So then the panic zone. Let's bring up the lower third again. So we've talked about the comfort zone. We talked about the growth zone. And then we talked about now we're going to talk about the panic zone. So for the panic zone, here we introduced, for the normal person, for the normies out there, high stress. And high stress comes with anxiety. It comes with feelings of overwhelm. Like you may not be overwhelmed, but it can create this feeling of overwhelm. And if we have these feelings of being overwhelmed, if we have these feelings of anxiousness, that can add to the stress. So one, we could be in a high stress environment or a high stress situation, but then if it brings forward these ideas or these feelings of anxiety, it can compound the stress. I went to the Houston, Texas last year, and it was really fun. I got to go to the NASA Space Center, and I went on this tour, and I was with my friend Kathy. And we ended up going on this tour, and then we got to meet a couple astronauts. Who does that? But we were talking with them, and they were sharing that part of their training is they will take, what is it? They said NASA will poach college students fresh out of college, and in some cases before they even leave college, to come join NASA. And then I was like, well, why would you do that? And they said they would do that because they have the least amount of doubt. They have the least amount of inner self telling them that they can't do something. And I was like, well, why would that be an important thing? And they said, well, because what they'll do is they'll give those astronauts in training this seemingly impossible task to solve. There's this high stress, simulated high stress environment. And then when they solve that impossible task, they'll then give them another seemingly impossible task, and then they'll solve that. And then after they solve that, they'll give another task after task after task. They'll keep throwing things at them until they've done a whole day where they've solved nothing but impossible tasks. Then they go home for that day and they come back the next. And they do another day of it and another day until months and then years go by. And then I was like, well, what would the outcome be of that? And they said, and I thought this was super interesting. They said, because when they get up there in space and then something horrible happens, it's an actual real live high stress environment. But because we've conditioned them to being one thing after another, when one horrible thing happens, it could be one horrible thing, but they're conditioned to being this level of stress is now normal for them. And they can solve their way out of these problems. They can solve their way out of these challenging situations. And I was like, holy crap, that's amazing. Because you'll take them when they have the least sense of doubt, condition them to having this high sense of performance, and then they're less prone to be anxious. They're less prone to be overwhelmed. They're less prone. There might be high stress situations, yes, but as a normal person, you can manage it and deal with it if that's what you've conditioned yourself to do. And for me, I was like in awe, because I was like, wow, that makes sense. Some of the hardest things that astronauts can do, that put themselves through, it's pretty amazing what they can do when you string them event together. Going to the moon. What are we doing? We're on our way to Mars now. Okay, so let's move to the next one. So lower third next. So living in the panic zone as an addict. So here we're going to talk about numbing, distress, depression, low confidence. Those are all things we saw in that busy graph earlier. So by having the panic zone, and it's almost like in a past episode I shared, we talked about emotion. And from emotion, from a person in recovery standpoint, we have almost two emotions. We've got one where things are really, really good, the comfort zone, and then we've got everything else, which is just crazy, which is the frustration, the anger, the resentment, the negativity, the high stress. Everything is balled up into like anything that's not good. So we've got everything that's good. So everything is really good. The emotions are really high. And then things are feeling really crappy because everything else is balled up into that. It's no way to live. It's not a healthy way of living. I've got another graphic here. It's not as busy, but it kind of depicts. It's more black and white. Okay, here, check this one out. So this one here, it's called the 2% mindset. And it's similar to what this is. So imagine where we've got everything is in the comfort zone, and then there's everything else that's outside of it, that's balled up into it. This is meant to be more of a depiction so you can get a visual. So this one is sharing like, and it's hard in recovery because if all we're doing is numbing ourselves and we're living in the state of distress, we're coping by choosing to remain in this addiction-filled life, this substance-filled life. And by condoning that, we remove the ability to experience all the other emotions in between. It becomes more black and white, which isn't the real world. The real world isn't black and white. There's shades of gray. There's brilliance of color. There's more emotion experiences out there. But if all we're doing is living in if we're not in the comfort zone, which we established wasn't the healthiest place for an addict to live, or we're living in the panic zone, which isn't the healthiest place to live because it's filled with numbing, distress, depression, and low confidence. And if we're making a decision about approaching the cliff before it even arrives, if we're making a decision approaching this anxiety, this anxiousness, this depression before it even arrives, we're going to make a decision, statistically speaking, habitually speaking, we've conditioned ourselves as addicts to not even want to venture outside. And if we never venture outside, we never have an optimal growth zone. We never have a learning zone. If we only have the two zones, we only have the inner comfort zone, which isn't happy, isn't supportive, isn't conducive to the outstanding life we want. And if we live in the panic zone, everything is just crazy, 0 to 60. It's not a happy, supportive living lifestyle we want. It's filled with stress, numbing, depression, low confidence. And so the fear of making the decision can stop us from ever growing. And it's when we live in that comfort zone for too long that we remove the possibility of even having an optimal performance zone. We lose the possibility of even having a growth zone. We're not even open to the idea of learning. And that's where the video had at the beginning. We have to believe that a better life is out there. And then we also have to believe that it's worth the journey. And then the third thing we have to believe is that I'm worth the journey. And it's entertaining those ideas that allow us to grow outside of our comfort zone, that challenge us to have that transparent, radical transparency and radical open-mindedness. And that allows healthy conversations to be brought in and to extend healthy conversations to others. Okay, so what did we talk about? We talked about an outstanding life. And my name is Jason. And if you're new here, say hello. We're talking about recovery. We're talking about addiction. And if you want to know more about what we're chatting about, type show in the comments. If you want a reminder for when we go live, we'll have a message sent out to you about 10 minutes before. I want to go check out the comments here real quick. And I want to see. Hold on. Yes. Amy is sharing worthiness is a tricky thing internally. It is. And it's interesting because it's the same worth of value, the same sense of worth and value for me that brings that satisfaction to me isn't the same worth and value that brings it for others. And how we get there on our own is individual. One thing we share in the meetings is, there can be like 50, 100 guys in the meeting, people in the meeting. And what brings us to those meetings is individual. And when we go to the meetings, we never really we never focus really on what brought us to the meetings. What we mainly focus on is what makes us stay. Because what makes us stay is the message. It's what we're talking about. It's the idea of that sense of worth, that we are contributing values, that we do add value. Okay. So then here we have today's safety moment. Before we finish up, we always have a safety moment. We talk about it's okay to not know the answers. It's okay to have these questions. It's okay to I want to say it's what is it? We recapped here real quick about to break free from our comfort zones. We're going to need to believe in the possibility of having an outstanding life. If we're going to break free of our comfort zones, we're going to believe that I'm going to find it, and that this journey is worth finding. And then lastly, I have to believe that I'm worth it. I have to find value in myself. And it seems really interesting. It's hold on, I want to bring up the video again so we can finish off with the video. I want to remove the lower third and the overlay. And we'll go over the video real quick one last time before we finish. So here we have the outstanding life, and here with Jason, we're talking about comfort zones. And, as humans, we're wired to seek out comfort. And that's why it's hard to let go. Humans, we create comfort, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with being in your comfort zone, unless you're getting too comfortable and you're starting to hold back instead of growing or learning or even trying new things. And if I challenge myself, if I take risks, and it slowly helps me grow. It's not an overnight process. So without any risk, there's going to be no reward. And we embrace new challenges. And because it gives me the opportunity to be more creative, and it gives me the confidence to keep going. There's 3 main beliefs we talked about for an outstanding life. For one, comfort zones, they make me feel safe, but they have the chance to limit my potential. I have to believe in the possibility a better life is out there for me to achieve. And number 2, I have to believe that I'm going to find it, that this outstanding life is worth it. And the third thing is, I have to believe that I'm worth it, that I deserve an outstanding life. And if I don't find value in the journey, if I don't find value in the opportunity, I give up before I even begin. Like we said about approaching the cliff. The scariness comes from the idea of falling, not from the cliff itself. And pretty soon I'm settling for a life less than I deserve. If I never believe in the possibility, I never take chances, and I settle into a life that doesn't truly make me happy. The only way I will ever be able to become more than I am is by experiencing what's outside of me. As an addict, it's easy to keep numbing, stuffing, and buffering, but suffering is not a blanket of comfort. Comfort shouldn't be holding me captive. And it's okay. It's okay to keep growing. It's okay to keep moving. As long as I'm moving in the direction of progress. And it's important to know it's not about perfection. It's about progress. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to keep going. I don't want to focus on the end game. Instead, I want to focus on doing the next right thing. If I really want this outstanding life, I have to replace my limiting beliefs with liberating truths. I have to be stronger than my fears, and I have to believe that I'm worth it. Happiness is an inside job, and comfort zones we discussed, they can be dangerous. Repeating behaviors, patterns, routines, they all minimize stress and risk. Healthy patterns should be formed. They encourage growth, they challenge us to be more. That's what a healthy pattern should be. And we get there by having a radical sense of transparency, by having a radical open-mindedness. So thank you everyone for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. I have fun making these little videos. I enjoy making them. I set a small part of my week every week to put this aside to make it out. Amy's saying thanks for the content today. Thanks for sharing. That's pretty awesome. Thank you, Amy. I love that you're here hanging out. It means a lot. The video today was moving. Wow. That's awesome, Amy. I'm really glad you're getting a lot out of this. I get messages every week, and I never really know. I was out having coffee with someone last week, and they had some questions about the show, and I was sharing with them about this. And then as I was sharing with them what the purpose was, or what my goal is, and what I aspire the show to become, and it was amazing because just as I was mentioning and sharing, someone sent me a message telling me, it was a personal message sharing with like what the last episode meant, and I was blown away, and I was like, holy cow, I couldn't believe it. The impact of this is more than what we believe it is. There's more value in what we're sharing. There's more value in this message. And I think that's a message that's worth sharing. So I make it a priority every week to send this out there. My schedule's a little out of whack this week, and I'm sorry about that. But you have my commitment. We're going to have this conversation every week. But thank you, everyone, for stopping by. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. It really means a lot. Thank you, Amy, for saying hello. I'm really glad you're getting a lot of value out of this. But for everyone else watching, take care and have fun, and I look forward to seeing you next week.